Let's roll into the wide receivers. You'd think top end, you can't go wrong, although there's a few to just be caution.
Yeah, I agree. I think I looked at the top 20 list and was like, you pick any of these guys and you'd be set. So they're all going to have, potentially big years. Of course, if you pick an earlier like Jefferson, Chase, and Hill is kind of those top kind of three guys there. I do have of the 20, the only one that kind of worried me was probably Cup. Again, coming off last season, and he needs Stafford. They're the big things. If he's healthy and he's got Stafford, could be all sorts, and he'd be worth the pick. It just scares me if you're picking him early in the first round based on those two factors at the moment. So, a little bit of worry there, but otherwise I'm pretty all happy with the early wide receivers.
News is Stafford should be good for week one, plagued by elbow and back problems last year. Agreed. A little bit of caution around Cooper. Love Jefferson, love Chase, love Hill. You're going to have to go early, though, with all of them, obviously.
Yep.
What about Devontae? Thoughts?
Which Devontae?
Adams?
Jimmy G. He's still an elite route runner. I'm not too worried. I think he's going to get his and be fine. You've got him there listed as wide receiver 3, maybe.
That's last year's. I think his ADP is slightly lower.
Yeah. So, and I think that's probably a good reflection. He doesn't have his best mate in Derek Carr at the moment, so I'm happy with that. So, I think he's still going to get his. I think he'll still get 1,000 yards and still get a bunch of touchdowns because they really don't have a lot of other options.
Yeah, I agree.
Jimmy G's got to throw to someone, and it's most likely going to be him.
Yep, I think late first round, early second, Devontae's no dramas there. Early rounds?
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, Waddle, Olave, all great going into second. They're all second years, aren't they? All third years.
Waddle's third, Olave, Wilson a second.
Again, young talent, pick him. You got no issues there. I think just don't forget about Devontae Smith. I think he's he's in that offense. He was really good last year, and I think he can take another step. And all on the Eagles to go deep again and probably repeat what they did last year and even be better potentially. So I'm looking for them to take a big leap. The one that does worry me a little bit is probably Keenan Allen. He's getting a bit older. He has had hamstring injuries. He got a little bit of risk there, but when he's healthy and plays, elite. So, you got to flip that coin when you're picking him.
I think his ADP is sort of reflecting that as well. Got him as wide receiver 20-ish, whereas the aforementioned all going a little bit earlier.
Yeah. But that's the other rounds.
Middle of the pack, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, he's been getting all the hype preseason. Caught another touchdown or big pass today. Looking very good and has fit into that offense really well. McLaurin got turf toe at the moment, but he's been looking really good. And Dodson actually has been showing out during preseason.
He's good.
And is it Sam Howell? Howell is going to be their QB1, and he's been looking really good during preseason. So if they can keep that form going into the regular season, I think you'd pick either of those two guys in the middle of the pack and you'd be right. I feel the exact same about the Steelers after watching Kenny Pickett being playing. He's had a really good preseason, and I think that's going to be beneficial for Johnson. Johnson struggled. Got no touchdowns last year. He was the first bloke to get 140 targets and 80-plus catches and no touchdowns. So he'll regress to the mean.
Of catching a couple.
Yeah. And he's their main target in this offense. And I think Pickens will also benefit as well. I think Pickett's going to take a step forward, and Pickens will benefit, and they will. The Steelers will be better this year. So, I like both those guys as middle round picks that you can target and get a lot of good value out of.
It's wild, isn't it? Those Deontay Johnson numbers. He had more targets last year than Jamar Chase, than AJ Brown, than DK Metcalf, and he caught 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, and most of that was with the rookie. So I think they're going to take his elite this year. They've looked pretty good. The defense is still Steelers' defense. We didn't talk about Harrison and Warren in the running backs.
Yeah, running backs.
I think they're
Harris.
Yeah, I think they're going to go to a bit more of a 50-50 split. than it was last year, 70-30. So I think they're going to be very good, old school kind of football, pound the rock, and then they have the two wide receivers on the outside. Because I think they'll do 2 tight end sets a lot with Washington and Frymouth there as their tight ends. So that's what I think their offense is. So they're going to get heaps of targets, heaps of looks. On stick in the middle pack on the Broncos, Judy's hurt. They think he's going to miss a couple of weeks. I think he'll miss the first month of the season. Hamstring for him, which is Sutton's been the healthiest. Sutton's probably going to be the go-to target. He's probably the one to target here in the middle of rounds. If you're going to go Denver wide receiver, I think this will push Dulcich a bit more than Mims will for targets in this offense. Dulcich has kind of not been used predominantly as a tight end much in the preseason. Maybe they're hiding him a little bit.
Where have they been playing him?
Well, he's tight end too, so he isn't the starting tight ends because he doesn't block as much, so he hasn't been seeing the field as much. But I think with these injuries, a lot of the wide receivers, he's going to be called in as kind of a de facto, third wide receiver here. So I think that's going to be elevate him a little bit more. And Mims will probably be wide receiver 2 to start the year with the injuries to everyone else in that squad. I think it helps the tight ends a bit more. They play a lot more 2 tight end sets. So, Sutton, Mims, Dulcich will see a lot of the field. So I think they're the kind of ones I'd be targeting. If Judy is in your draft and he slides 3 or 4 rounds for you because of the injury, then that's valid. Pick him then.
Elijah Moore, what's your thoughts here? He's going to be wide receiver 2 behind Amari Cooper at the Browns, but he's looked pretty good at the Jets. Last year he got no love, that's why he wanted to leave. But in his rookie year was really good. He could definitely have a higher ceiling for the Cleveland Browns.
And it's also been interesting how they've been using him in the preseason so far as well. He's been in the backfield a fair bit. He's kind of been all over the place.
Samuel kind of role.
Yeah, he's not as big as Debo is, but there's potential there for getting a lot more ball, a lot more opportunity. So again, middle of the pack towards the back end of the middle of the pack that we're talking about at the moment. I think he's a good target there.
What's his ADP?
45, so somewhere in the 5th round there.
Yeah.
And then Brendan.
That's wide receiver 45.
Yeah, it's right.
Actually, sorry, yeah.
So
he's
late. Like a late rounder.
Yeah,
yes.
he's like going in the 10th round kind of thing. So that's a nice kind of little target there. Brandon Ayuk, I think he's the best wide receiver option at the 49ers. We'll probably talk about tight ends later. I'm fading Kittle because I just think they've got too many mouths to feed, and he, with the way Brock Purdy's kind of been playing, won't get as many options. I think he'll end up blocking more than he'll be catching routes, unfortunately. And I think Brandon, he got over 1,000 yards last year and looks really good. And I think he takes, when they have to pass, he's their option. It's not going to Debo. So I think he's definitely a very good option, especially here in the middle rounds. You can get a lot of good value for him.
And you've got a whole wide receiver cores here that you don't like.
Yeah, Buccaneers, Falcons, Pats, Cards, Bears, just avoid. It's either the wide receivers or the quarterback room. Like Buccaneers, they're going to have Baker. You're probably going to get some value out of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But I just think there's better options elsewhere. So that's why I'm avoiding. Falcons, they're a running team. Rookie quarterback, Drake London.
Drake London's a wide receiver 2 for you.
Yeah, he's probably your only option. But again, I think there's better options. The Pats just don't have. You don't want Juju or Parker. Avoid. Cards. Brown's probably the main one. I think I've put it there. Michael Wilson as well is kind of a bit of a sleeper. He's a rookie. He's going to be their wide receiver number 2. But Kyler's still a while away. And that team's in full tank mode at the moment. So I'd stay away from Cards. And Bears is probably more a question of, what's Fields going to do for you. DJ Moore's your main pick here. But what we've seen so far is Fields is not really a passer. He's a run first, then pass. So that's last season. If he has the improvement, DJ Moore and his, their connection in preseason so far has looked really good. Again, I just think there's probably better options.
Bears and wide receivers in fantasy definitely don't go hand in hand
in recent memory.
Having said that, in terms of talent, with DJ Moore coming in, and even Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney, if they can get going,
they have the
definitely
talent,
talented. But I agree, be very cautious with drafting any of those guys.
Mm.
So some of my sleepers at the moment, I think the KC wide receiver room is very, very interesting. Of course, outside of Kels, someone else has to catch the football. I have a feeling that Tony, they're actually going to move him. He's been injured. He hasn't played a lot of games. He's uber talented. But I think they just have so much more depth. They don't really need him, and they can rely on other guys. So I feel like Sky Moore is probably going to be wide receiver 1. That's kind of reflected so far in the preseason. MVS will have a role, but he's their deep threat, so he doesn't really get much volume.
And consistency with MVS is caution.
That's the problem. Whereas I think Sky Moore, he's going to get the volume. He play out of the slot. And then so far, Rice, the rookie, has been getting more looks than Ross, who's technically a rookie, but it's his second year. Was injured last year coming out of Clemson. But Ross is a bigger target. That's the other thing. The other guys are, I think Rice was 6'2", and Moore was more like a 5'11" kind of slot guy, whereas Ross is 6'4", so he's the big dude. So I feel like he could be that big target for Patrick Mahomes. So these guys are all very, very late. We're talking picking them in the last round of your draft. Taking a flyer.
Getting your kicker first.
Exactly, yeah. I would say these are the guys you kind of take flyers on because they're in that offense with Patrick Mahomes and, an injury away, and they'll be starting and having, potential lot of balls coming their way. So I think Rice and Ross have been, preseason darlings for Kansas City. So they're worth a flyer very late in your drafts.
This is Justin Ross, who is the 6'4" receiver out of Clemson, and Rashee Rice, 6'1" out of Southern Methodist.
Yeah, who was their second round pick. So they've got a role for him. At the moment, the veterans, Moore is the guy getting all the snaps with the ones in preseason. But, we'll see what happens when we roll into the season. So I like to target both those guys late because I think they've got value. I mentioned Michael Wilson before. He's a bit of a sleeper because he's not getting drafted again, flyer late in the last round. And I mentioned Jalen Hyatt before. He very much could be QB. Fuck me. Wide receiver is what I was going for. I said RB and QB. Wide receiver 1 for the Giants because they really don't have any options. He was their main wide receiver pick. They did pick him really late. He slid a bit because a lot of teams were worried about his route running, but he's an absolute speed demon. Video of him running past Sauce like he was nothing, and the ball was underthrown. He would have scored a touchdown. There's you can see the talent that they potentially have there. I think Darren Waller's going to get all the ball of Giants this year, but again, he's a guy that you maybe take a flyer late, that maybe he comes on as a rookie and you get some value out of him. And then Romeo Dobbs. We've talked about the Packers. We don't know what that offense is going to be, but from snap wise, target wise, so far for Green Bay through preseason, Dobbs has been getting all the ball. So, Watson's the big deep threat, big red zone target. But outside of that, who's going to get the ball? And it looks like it's going to be Dobbs.
Yeah, volume, consistency. Romeo Dobbs could be a good one late round.
Yep. And then for the Rooks, I don't think it matters. Pick one of them. You can't go wrong. It's kind of changed. I think Flowers has got a perfect situation with OBJ's probably too old, and he's going to overtake Bateman. He's going to get all the ball. Smith and Jigba is...
Flowers is my favourite.
Yeah, Smith and Jigba is going to get plenty of ball too.
He's wide receiver 3.
He is wide receiver 3, but I think that's kind of the offense they're going to go to this year. He's been electric through preseason. He's going to get a lot of snaps. Johnson's again kind of wide receiver 3.
The Chargers,
whether they move Allen, whether they move Williams. There's been talk about that in the past because they got to pay someone at some point. But he's their future. So, and again, he's looked good deep threat, can get open in the end zone, and then Addison's guaranteed wide receiver 2 at the moment. So, a lot of these rookies, these first round rookies, I think you could pick them where they're going in their ADP, and you get value out of them. So I'm not too worried about it.
I agree. I think the ones that are wearing purple this year smash. I think Flowers could be wide receiver 1 at Baltimore. I think Addison will definitely be 2 in a high-powered offense. And if you're in keeper league, I think JSN or Quinton Johnson is definitely guys to target.
Yep, agree.
Anything to add on receivers?
Any other questions on any receivers? There's a lot. We haven't
not
covered
really.
them all.
That's hard, yeah. I in terms of general strategy,
Focusing on the first few rounds.
I'm going wide receiver hard at the start.
And I think that's the way fantasy football's going. Most people playing PP,
it's where the league goes.
PPR.
It's where the league's going as well.
Yep.
If it's harder with committee running backs, and nearly every backfield now has some form of committee. The days of AP have kind of died down.
Derrick Henry says, doesn't catch many passes. So, I think in terms of overall strategy, I think you got to go elite wide receivers early. I don't think you can go wrong. And then taking a punt on some of these later round guys, it's definitely the deepest position.
Yep.